What if the very voice of God was not a thunder from the heavens, but a whisper inside your own mind? What if the grand secret of the universe, the divine spark you've been chasing, was never outside of you at all, but within, alive, waiting, always whispering in the stillness of your own imagination? To the world that may sound radical, but to the one who has truly awakened, it is the most obvious truth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But how did he create? Not with hands, not with tools. He imagined. And it was so. This is the image in which you were made. Neville said, imagination is not a thing. It is the very being itself. And the more deeply you let that in, the more you begin to understand the strange and sacred power breathing through your being. Right now, you are not imagining something, you are imagining as the divine. Not a daydreamer brushing up against reality, but the very architect of it. There is a still, quiet knowing inside you that this is true. It rings like a soft bell through your bones. You feel it when you close your eyes and allow yourself to drift, not away but inward, toward that place where thought becomes form, and form becomes flesh. The world is a mirror, reflecting not what you want, but what you believe, and belief is shaped in the theater of imagination. This is not about fantasy. It is not about pretending. It is about knowing that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. This is scripture not as metaphor but as map, a guide to the kingdom within. And the kingdom is not far off. It is not somewhere you must reach after years of effort. It is here now, accessed in the blink of a thought, in the breath between doubt and desire, the sacred space where you see as if it were, until it is. When you imagine something with feeling, with full acceptance that it already is, you are not asking, you are creating. You are assuming the mantle of the Creator, which is your birthright. And this is where the radical truth lives, that there is no intermediary, no external force deciding your fate, no clock you must wait on, no higher counsel you must persuade. There is only consciousness, yours, and it is divine. It is imagination. When you lay your head at night and drift into sleep, you are given a gift. The veil is thin, the door to the subconscious open, and here your imagined reality becomes a seed planted in the fertile soil of being. Treat it with reverence. Feel the scene you desire, not as a desperate longing, but as a gentle remembering. The house, the hand in yours, the laughter echoing through the room. Feel it, dwell in it, touch it with your senses from within, and then let go, not with fear, but with trust, because what you have imagined, if fully accepted, is already done. It exists now, in a dimension of consciousness more real than any fact your senses report. You do not need to force it. You do not need to doubt it. You need only to dwell in it, like a lover resting in the arms of certainty. This is not passive. It is power, the greatest kind. The world may scoff. They will say, be realistic. But realism is the most subtle prison. And you, dear one, are not here to be caged by logic. You are here to awaken. You are here to remember that the God you seek has always been speaking through your visions, your longings, your dreams. Imagination is God, not a symbol of Him, not a servant of Him. It is Him. And once you accept that truth, not intellectually, but emotionally, experientially, the veil thins, and you will see, you are not small, you never were. You are the dreamer in the midst of your dream, and the moment you imagine something and believe it, you have already set it into motion. Let it unfold, let it come. You don't need to know the how, just return again and again to that holy inner place where it already is, where you already are, where God whispers in your own voice, and it is so. And so the question is no longer if you can create, it is only, what will you accept as true? Because the moment you accept a thing in imagination fully and without resistance, it begins to clothe itself in fact. The world bends. Time folds inward. Circumstances rearrange quietly, faithfully, in obedience to your inner vision. Neville once said, change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. This is not mere philosophy. It is law. There is a current of life beneath appearances, unseen but not unknown. It speaks not in words but in feeling, in inner conviction. That sense of knowing, quiet and calm, that this is done. When you assume the end, not as something to reach for but something already received, you speak the language of God. I am the Lord that maketh all things, Isaiah 44:24. Not some things, all things, from the grand to the minute, from empires to coincidences, from the home you dwell in to the smile of a stranger who appears at just the right moment to remind you, this world is not random, it is imagined. You imagine, and it becomes. But this imagining must be saturated with belief. It must be felt, not merely pictured. You must enter the state and live from it, just as naturally as you live from your name, your identity, your very breath. If you want to be loved, you must become one who is love. If you want to be abundant, then be abundance, not in theory, in feeling, in tone, in posture, in the way you walk through your kitchen, in the thoughts you allow to linger as you drift to sleep. It is not about striving. The truth is gentler than that. It's about surrendering the lie that you are anything less than a creator. Close your eyes, just for a moment, and let yourself be there, not moving toward the goal, but resting within it, as if your life had already rearranged, as if the scene had already happened. Feel the warmth of it, the subtle changes in how you would breathe, how you would speak, the lightness in your chest when there is no longer anything to get, because it is already yours. This is what it means to live in the end, to dwell in the assumption until it hardens into fact, to remain faithful to the unseen, even when your senses scream otherwise. For we walk by faith, not by sight, and faith is not blind. Faith is inner vision. It is clarity in the unseen. The world outside may tell you to be cautious, to be realistic, to hedge your hopes and lower your expectations, but the kingdom does not work this way. The kingdom belongs to those who believe like children, unspoiled by logic, unchained from evidence, undeterred by delay. You are not waiting on a sign. You are not waiting on permission. You are waiting on nothing, because imagination is already moving, already creating, right now. You may not yet see it, but trust it is unfolding, sometimes softly, sometimes all at once, but always it obeys the blueprint you hold in the silence of your soul. So tonight, release the worry. There is no power out there you must impress. There is only the sacred mirror, and the face you show it in secret becomes the face it returns in form. You are the operant power. What you accept becomes, and the only true work is to persist in that acceptance, even when the senses show you shadows, even when logic tries to pull you back into fear. Let them pass. You are not of that world anymore. You live in the end, and from that end, the world reshapes itself, not because you forced it, but because you finally remembered. You are the dreamer, and what you imagine is already true. There is something sacred about nightfall, the way the world softens, how the noise begins to hush, and in the stillness, you hear again the language of the soul. This is the perfect hour, not to ask, not to plead, but to remember, for the truth has never left you. You may have forgotten it in the tangle of the day, in the weight of deadlines and glances and doubt, but under it all you still know. Imagination is God, not just a power, not a tool to use for some things and neglect for others. It is the power, the Alpha and the Omega. In the beginning God created heaven and earth, but what was the beginning? Not time, not matter, imagination, the invisible blueprint behind all that now appears as real. And if the beginning is imagination, then so is the end. It is always imagination. It was never about doing more, chasing harder, or proving your worth to some outside force. It was always about entering the state and remaining faithful to it. Faith, Neville taught, is loyalty to the unseen reality, to what is felt within, though the senses deny it. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. Substance, evidence, not vague wishes, but structure, form, held in imagination before it becomes physical. There is a feeling tone to every desire fulfilled. It's not something you chase, it's something you assume. An assumption, when done correctly, becomes knowing. The world cannot help but follow. You may not know how. You don't need to. Your only task is to enter the state and dwell there, as if it were already so. Just like slipping into a warm coat. Feel the scene wrap itself around you. The version of you who already has the thing, already is the person, already knows the piece of it. Not reaching, but resting. And from that rest, movement begins. Invisible bridges form, unexpected encounters, ideas, whispers, nudges. The outer world is simply catching up to the inner one. Because imagination is not pretend. Imagination is the womb of creation. It is spirit in motion, the shaping hand of God, and it is yours. But this sacred process can't be rushed. Like a seed beneath the soil, it works in silence. You water it with repetition. You nurture it with faith. You protect it from doubt, like shielding a candle from the wind. You don't dig it up every hour to check on its progress. You trust that it's growing, even if nothing seems to be happening. Especially then, something is always happening. You've done more than you realize. The fact that you've imagined it, assumed it, felt the reality of it, means the seed is planted. Now let it bloom. Stay in the end, not as discipline but as delight. Let the wish fulfilled be your secret joy. Not something to strive for, but something to return to, again and again, until the world begins to echo your song, and it will, not by your effort, but by your faith, not by pushing, but by surrender. Imagination does not respond to force, it responds to acceptance. So tonight, as you drift to sleep, imagine softly, no strain, no stress, just the quiet knowing, it is done. Feel the room change, hear the words spoken, picture the scene, not as a movie you watch, but as a life you live. Be in it, feel it in your breath, your heartbeat, the weight of the blankets. This is your new home. Let the body fall asleep while the mind remains in the wish fulfilled, because in that in-between, the bridge is built, and soon enough, what was imagined in silence becomes undeniable in form. It is a tender miracle, isn't it? The way something imagined with care begins to shimmer beneath the surface of reality. At first faint like a breath on glass, then clearer, sharper, until it stands before you as if it had always been. And in truth it had been. You only brought it into form. This is the nature of imagination. It is not creating something from nothing. It is revealing what already exists in another dimension of awareness. Your desire is not something outside of you beckoning you forward like a distant lighthouse. It is within you, already finished, waiting for you to claim it. Neville called this the law of assumption. To live from the state of the wish fulfilled, not merely think about it, but embody it, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It is not a performance. It is not a trick to fool the universe. It is communion with the God within you. You do not need to ask permission. You do not need to beg. For if imagination is God, and God dwells within you, then you are never separate from the power that fulfills. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Stillness is not passive. It is profoundly creative. In stillness you withdraw your energy from the chaos of the world. You stop reacting. You turn inward. And there in that silence you remember who you are. Not the version of you wrapped in fear, or lack, or memory, but the true you made in the image of imagination itself. A being of vision, of feeling, of creative force. This remembrance is what Neville meant when he said to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Because what you feel, you fertilize. And what you persist in feeling, you give birth to. It is not enough to visualize once. You must return to the scene, gently but faithfully, until it becomes your natural state, until doubt no longer fits, until hope turns into knowing. The world may resist. It may offer you evidence that contradicts your vision, but you are not required to fight it. You are only required to ignore it, not with aggression but with peace. As a mother ignores the noise outside the nursery, so she can rock her child to sleep, you ignore the noise of appearances, so your vision may settle and root. Let the senses deceive you, for they can only report what has been assumed in the past. Your imagination writes the future, and if you do not like what you see, you do not battle the mirror. You change the face, you return to the feeling. You ask no one for permission, you need no one's agreement. Your inner world is sovereign. Your only job is to dwell in the end, and by end, Neville did not mean death, but completion. He meant the moment when desire is fulfilled, and there is nothing left to strive for. It is not a place you arrive at later. It is a feeling you surrender to now. That is the secret. Assumption is now, not next week, not next year, but now. This breath, this heartbeat. You close your eyes, and you are there, not reaching but receiving, not yearning, but yielding. And in that subtle shift, from effort to embodiment, you awaken the law. You do not have to hold the vision like a clenched fist. It is enough to cradle it. Let it rest in you like a precious thought. Return to it not as obligation, but as sanctuary. The world outside may remain unchanged for a moment, but within, something has shifted forever. And soon the outer must yield to the inner, because imagination is the cause, and you, beloved dreamer, are the vessel through which God imagines new worlds into being. So tonight return once more to the state. Feel the wish as fulfilled. Rest in it like a lullaby only you can hear. And as your body begins to slip into sleep, your imagination will rise, gently, silently, and go before you to prepare the way, not with noise, but with knowing. And so it moves quietly, without sound or trumpet, the unseen hand of your inner world rearranging the pieces of the outer. No effort, no command, just the echo of a state assumed in stillness, returning now as form. This is the mystery of imagination. It is not loud, it does not argue, it does not fight to be proven. It simply is, like wind sculpting dunes, like roots breaking stone. It shapes all that you see from within. You may not remember the moment you imagined your current world into being. It may have been born of a passing thought, a casual feeling repeated, or a deep belief tucked into childhood. But everything in your world bows to the image held within. Even now you are imagining. Even now, the fabric of the future is responding to your inner climate. And so you return to the truth, not in panic or perfectionism, but in stillness, in surrender. Imagination does not require force, it blooms in acceptance. Let it be simple. Neville taught that all you need do is accept the end as real. Just as a dream feels real while you sleep, so must the vision feel while you're awake. Not in desperation, but in faith. Faith not in a distant God, but in the one who lives in your breath, behind your eyes, inside your very own imagination. For, as he often reminded us, all things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. John 1:3. And who is this him? He is your imagination. There is no intermediary, no permission slip from heaven, no bureaucracy in the divine. Only this, what you dare to accept as true without evidence, without approval, becomes your experience. This is why so few truly grasp it. It is radical, it is liberating, and it is terrifying, because it means you are responsible, not in blame but in power. You cannot point outward anymore, you must come inward. You must ask not what is possible, but what have I already accepted as true, and do I wish to keep it? There is no sin in changing your mind. To repent, Neville said, is simply to revise, to turn away from one assumption and embrace another, to lift your attention from limitation to liberty, to replace fear with fulfillment, to imagine again, not as escape but as creation. The world may scoff. Let it. It believes in causes and chains of events. You believe in states. The world demands evidence. You offer experience, and your life becomes the proof. You do not argue. You imagine. You do not convince. You feel. You do not chase. You assume, and like the slow turn of a tide, the outer begins to yield. At first it may whisper, a coincidence, a phrase you hear twice, a strange peace in your chest when all should feel chaotic. Then a door opens, a conversation shifts, a delay becomes divine. And what once seemed impossible now stands before you, not as miracle but as memory, because you had already lived it within. Your inner world had gone ahead, prepared the place, set the stage, and now you walk into it, not as surprise but as confirmation. You are not discovering, you are remembering. This is what it means to walk by faith, not by sight, to close your eyes and see, to step into the unseen with a heart already full. So tonight, as the world quiets and your breath begins to slow, you return again to the garden of your imagination, not to plant, but to rest. The seed has already been sown. Your assumption has already taken root. Now let it grow, not with striving, but with softness, not with watching, but with trust. And as sleep wraps itself around you like a soft blanket, your imagination stirs not to escape, but to create, not to wish, but to be. For imagination is God, and God, dear one, is dreaming through you. What the world calls reality is but the shadow of imagination made visible. Every brick, every law, every coincidence, every chance encounter, all of it once lived quietly in the unseen chambers of thought. And while most sleep through life believing cause lies in the outer, you begin to wake, not to the noise of the world, but to the whisper of your own consciousness. You understand now why Neville said that imagining creates reality, not in metaphor, not as poetry, but as law. It is not that imagination is like God, it is that imagination is God. The spark behind creation, the still small voice that speaks in images and feelings, not in thunder and lightning. And when you feel it deeply, vividly, unshakably, you move mountains without lifting a hand. You walk not by effort but by assumption, and the world, unknowing, bows in response. It is not arrogance, it is alignment. You are not forcing reality to bend to your will, you are allowing reality to reflect what has already been accepted in stillness. The truth is simple, though not easy. Your outer world cannot betray your inner acceptance. If life shows you limitation somewhere within, you've assumed it. And if you wish to change it, you do not need to fight the shadows. You turn to the light within, you revise, you reimagine, you assume again, feel it real, not as hope but as now. As if the door has already opened, and you are already standing on the other side. You do not need to wait for the world's permission, you do not need to rehearse the how. Imagination knows, it is the alpha and the omega of creation. You imagine the end and let the end imagine the way. Neville reminded us through the words of Isaiah, I am the Lord and there is none else, declaring the end from the beginning. Isaiah 46:9-10. This is not prophecy in the way the world thinks, this is not fate carved in stone. It is the divine blueprint of consciousness. You declare the end in imagination, and from that moment on, reality reshapes itself to match. Not because you chase or control or wrestle circumstances into place, but because assumption, when felt deeply enough, becomes fact. You are not a victim of time, you are its author. You collapse delay by stepping into fulfillment. You dissolve resistance by refusing to entertain its possibility. You do not imagine to get something, you imagine because it is already yours. The wish fulfilled is not a place you go, it is a home you return to, a state you live in, and when you truly dwell there, not visiting, not testing but living, everything must follow. Because your outer world is loyal, it mirrors what you believe, not what you want. And so you surrender the wanting, you surrender the waiting, and you rest in the feeling of completion. You wear it like a garment, you carry it like breath. Not just during meditation, but throughout the day, in silence, in busyness, in motion, in stillness. You walk in the tone of the answered prayer, even when nothing around you has changed, especially then, because that is faith, not blind but rooted, not wishful but creative. And though the fig tree may not yet blossom, and no fruit may yet appear, you persist in joy, you persist in knowing, you persist in imagination, and then it comes quietly, sometimes suddenly, but always perfectly. Not a miracle from the sky, a reflection from within. The world calls it coincidence. You call it remembrance. You have simply returned to what was always yours. You have remembered that imagination is not your tool. It is your identity, your origin, your inheritance. And in the gentle rhythm of this knowing, you relax. You breathe deeper. You feel the weight slide from your shoulders. You are not lost. You were never behind. You only forgot who you are. And now, in this sacred stillness, you remember. When you begin to live from imagination, not merely think about it, the texture of reality softens. It no longer feels rigid, unchangeable, cold. Instead, life becomes fluid, malleable, responsive. You touch it with thought, and it ripples. You speak from the wish fulfilled, and it echoes. Not because you are manipulating life from outside, but because you've entered it from within. Imagination is not something you use like a hammer to force change. It's the air you breathe, the invisible breath that animates the visible world. And once you recognize it as divine, once you honor it as sacred, everything ordinary begins to glow with hidden potential. The chair you sit in, the room you walk through, the words you say, each becomes a vessel through which imagination flows. Nothing is too small. Nothing is too mundane. You are no longer a passive observer of a fixed world. You are a quiet sculptor, shaping with every unseen thought, every accepted assumption. This is why Neville said the true church is within, not built with hands, but formed in consciousness. And it is here, within the sanctuary of the mind, that you meet God, not as a distant figure, but as awareness itself, as the one who imagines and believes and feels things into being, as the one who says I am, and lets that be enough. Because when you say I am, you invoke the name of God, and what you add after it is not description, it's creation. I am love, I am free, I am whole. These are not affirmations for the mind to recite, they are assumptions to be felt, and when they are felt in stillness, felt in the depths of being, they do not return void. They reshape the outer world to match the inner conviction. This is what the verse from John speaks to. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. The Word is not speech as we know it. It is vibration, awareness, the unspoken feeling of truth within. It's the silent knowing that what you assume as real becomes real, not someday. Now the time delay is only for your comfort, for your learning, so that you may come to trust yourself and not fear your power. You see, you have always been creating. Even in ignorance, you were creating. Even in doubt, even in fear, you were forming the outer from your inner states. And now, as awareness grows, you no longer react blindly. You choose. You become deliberate, not rigid, not controlling, but gentle, sovereign, clear. You don't ask, will this work? You ask, how does it feel? Because when the feeling is right, when it is alive, rich, saturated with conviction, then the world must conform. It has no choice. It is the mirror, not the maker. It reflects what you carry. And if what you carry is the end already fulfilled, then time folds, circumstances bend, the improbable becomes inevitable, not through effort, but through assumption. And yet it is never about the thing you want. It is always about the state you occupy. To assume the wish fulfilled is to become it, to let the desire dissolve into identity. You don't wish for wealth. You feel as one who already is. You don't strive for love. You walk in the certainty that you are chosen. You don't beg for healing. You rest in wholeness. And the world, which once looked so fixed, so slow, so distant, starts to move like music, like a dream reshaped by feeling. But unlike the dreams you forget upon waking, this one lingers, because it's not just in your mind, it is your mind, and your mind is God, and God is imagination. So you return there, not to escape the world, but to seed it, to bring heaven to earth, thought by thought, tone by tone. You close your eyes and the noise falls away, the story softens, the struggle fades, and in that still, golden silence you become, not more than you were, but more aware. You remember the place you never left, the kingdom not of this world, but within it. And from this place you imagine again, not because you lack, but because you're full, not because you must, but because it's your nature, to create, to assume, to be. And so you return not as one who seeks, but as one who knows. You walk through the garden of your imagination as its rightful gardener, not to fix anything, not to force growth, but to enjoy its blooming. This inner landscape is not a fantasy, it is the source. You come to understand the outer world is but the shadow of your inner state, what you feel within, what you accept as true in the stillness of your being, casts itself out and becomes form, not instantly, but inevitably. This is why imagination must be honored with silence. You do not rush to plant a seed and dig it up the next day in doubt. You sow with faith and rest in the knowing. The wish fulfilled is not a hope, not a desire stretched into the future. It is a now, a sacred dwelling place, a consciousness already clothed in the outcome. To assume the wish fulfilled is not to pretend. It is to shift, to move into the vibration of the thing long before it appears, trusting that what is imagined with conviction is already finished in spirit. And what is finished in spirit must take root in time. Imagination then becomes your temple. You enter it daily, gently. You sit upon its throne not as a beggar, not as a seeker, but as one who remembers. I and my Father are one. John 10:30. This union is not poetic metaphor, it is literal. Your awareness is God's awareness, individualized. The same life that breathed the stars breathes in you, and it dreams through you, it creates through you, it expands through your assumptions, your visions, your reverent inner seeing. And when you accept this, not as theory but as reality, the whole game changes. You no longer pray to something outside, you no longer ask if your desire will come, you simply return to the inner scene, the imaginal act, and dwell in it as if it were more real than the world, because it is. The outer is always behind the inner. It trails in its wake like smoke follows fire, and you are the fire. You are the spark that speaks, let there be, and watches the void stir with form. And if you ever doubt, if you ever feel lost in the noise of appearances, return to the silence. Lay down the struggle. Close your eyes and let the inner scene unfold. The place where it is already done, the home you've already moved into, the hand you already hold, the health that already radiates through your body, not for the sake of escaping the moment, but for the purpose of creating a better one. You do not need to convince yourself. You only need to feel it real, to touch the unseen with enough sincerity that it becomes natural. And once it is natural within, life will catch up. You'll see something small shift, a message, a gesture, a whisper in the current of events, and you'll smile, not with surprise but recognition. Of course it's working. Of course it's here, because you already lived it. You already accepted it as true. That is the power of imagination consecrated, not idle daydreams, but sacred assumption. You start to notice how the most miraculous things arrive, not through strain but surrender, not through effort, but embodiment. And you realize slowly and then all at once that the real shift was never outside. It was in how you felt about yourself. It was in who you believed yourself to be. Because when you imagine lovingly, when you imagine from the state rather than toward it, you are no longer wishing, you are living. You are walking in faith, not as hope but as vision fulfilled. And this walk, invisible to others, transforms everything it touches. It is why the great masters said, when you pray, believe that you have received it, and it shall be yours, not later, now, because time bends to assumption, and assumption flows from imagination, and imagination is God, not separate from you, not far, but within, always waiting, always responding, always saying yes, yes to what you feel, yes to what you believe, yes to what you accept. So tonight, as the world stills and the veil thins, go inward, gently, lovingly, feel it real. Let the wish fulfilled become your resting place, and rest there not as visitor, but as rightful heir. You do not need permission. only awareness, only willingness to believe in the truth too radical for the world to accept, that your imagination, quiet and unseen, is the divine cause of all that comes. And once you begin to dwell there in the temple of the wish fulfilled, you start to see differently. The world no longer confronts you, it mirrors you. You don't chase after signs, they chase after you. Because you've moved your dwelling place from lack to fulfillment, from longing to arrival. And the world, being only a reflection, must echo your inner speech. You speak not out loud, but in consciousness, saying, this is who I am, this is what I have, this is how it feels. And that inner speech, that unspoken decree, goes out like a seed into the soil of time. You do not always see the growth instantly, but you rest in its inevitability. For it is written, my word shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please. Isaiah 55:11. This is not just God's word, it is your word spoken from the throne of awareness. And when spoken with feeling, with sincerity, it does not return empty. It forms, it molds. It moves people and circumstances in perfect orchestration, sometimes subtly, sometimes swiftly, but always faithfully. This is the sacred science of the inner world, a realm that is not imaginary but imaginal, not fiction but foundation. It is the realm from which all things are born. You realize every emotion is a prayer, every belief a prophecy. You are not punished for your assumptions, you are punished by them. Likewise, you are not rewarded for hoping, you are rewarded for embodying, for daring to move into the unseen with such confidence that the seen must surrender. And this movement, this inner relocation, doesn't require effort. It requires trust. The kind of trust a child has in play, when they become the character without question. When they say, I'm a dragon, and breathe fire with conviction. They don't analyze. They don't doubt. They simply become. That's what Neville meant when he said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not beg for it. Not visualize it trying to happen, but feel it as already so. You take the end and you bring it here, into now. You bring the tone of triumph, the relief of completion, the satisfaction of already receiving, and you let it fill your body. Even if nothing on the outside reflects it yet, especially then, because that's when it matters most. When all appearances tempt you to deny the truth, that is the moment of power. That is when you get to decide whose voice you believe, the voice of senses or the voice of spirit. And spirit whispers in stillness, all things are possible to him who believes. You don't need to know how. That's never your task. Your role is to feel, to become so saturated in the reality you've imagined that the outer world has no choice but to yield. And it always does. Sometimes in ways so subtle, so gentle, you almost miss them. A phone call, a chance meeting, a word spoken by a stranger that matches your secret vision. Other times in ways so loud, so unmistakable, it stuns you into silence. But whether it arrives like rain or thunder, it arrives, because it was never coming. It was already done. Your imagination was not asking, it was declaring. And when you finally grasp that you're not waiting on life, life is waiting on you, everything softens. You breathe differently. You walk with a quiet certainty, and people feel it. They may not know what's changed in you, but something has. You carry the fragrance of fulfillment, the calmness of one who's no longer striving. The light in your eyes speaks before your mouth ever does, and slowly your world follows suit. It bows to the authority of your assumption. It rearranges itself, not because you forced it, but because you lived it first within. And this is the mystery made simple. Imagination is not daydream. It is divine dialogue. It is the way the formless speaks form into being. And you, being one with it, were given the same power. Not someday. Not if you meditate long enough, now. Because imagination is God. Not apart but indwelling. Not symbolic but literal. And to honor it is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is to return home and remember who you are. So you begin to live from a different place. Not the surface, not reaction, not fear, but from the inner sanctuary where stillness speaks and imagination reigns. You begin to guard this place not out of defense, but devotion, because you've come to see it is holy, it is sacred, and it is yours. Your mind no longer wanders aimlessly in search of proof. It becomes the womb of creation. Every thought, every scene you replay in imagination is no longer idle. It is intentional. It is creative. It is the cause. You no longer say, I hope this happens. You say, it is already mine. And you let the feeling of that truth saturate your being. You walk in silence with the knowing that the world outside will eventually echo what you hold within, like a mirror slowly catching up to the light. You do not rush it. You do not force it. You simply return again and again to the felt reality of your wish already fulfilled. You become so familiar with that state, so at home in it, that you forget you ever doubted. And in that forgetfulness, in that sacred amnesia, the old self dissolves. The one who lacked, who waited, who feared, fades quietly into the past. What remains is stillness, And in that stillness, power, the power that does not shout or strive but simply is. You become less concerned with appearances. You no longer ask, is it working? Because that question no longer belongs to you. You've outgrown it. Like a child who no longer needs training wheels, you no longer need constant reassurance. You know because you've seen the truth behind the veil. You've touched the invisible and found it more real than the visible. And this knowing isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It's gentle, subtle, unshakable. You don't need to tell anyone what you're doing. Your energy speaks for you. You carry a frequency that cannot be faked. It comes from union, from alignment, from having dared to believe the impossible into the inevitable. Call unto me, and I will answer thee, and show thee great and mighty things which thou knowest not. Jeremiah 33:3. You no longer look out there for signs. You realize the signs come after the assumption. They follow faith, not precede it. So you no longer ask for the world's permission to believe. You give yourself that permission. And when doubts arise, as they do for all, you return home, back to that quiet chamber where imagination and spirit speak in whispers. You close your eyes. You breathe. You imagine again, not as wishful thinking but as sacred rehearsal. You walk the halls of your dream as if they are already built. You smell the air of your new life. You feel the warmth of the outcome. You rest in it, not for the sake of getting something but because it's who you are. And in that resting, in that divine ease, time collapses, circumstances bend, and what once felt far away draws near, effortlessly, because you've shifted the center of gravity, from hoping to knowing, from wanting to being. And when people ask, what's your secret? You may smile, not to withhold, but because it is not a secret to be spoken but lived, felt, embodied. You will know that your imagination is not merely your own. It is the divine in you, the spark of God, animating form. And in that realization, everything changes. Because you no longer pray as a beggar. You commune as a creator. You no longer visualize as a tool, but as an act of worship. Your life becomes a living prayer, and peace floods in, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer resisting the unseen. You are surrendered to its rhythm. You are dancing with it, breathing with it, dreaming with it, and the world, sensing your stillness, softens in return. It no longer fights you. It welcomes you, because you have remembered what Neville so often said. Imagination is the only redemptive power in the universe. And now you know, not just in mind, but in heart, in body, in breath, that the power is not outside you. It never was. It lives in you, moves through you, whispers, even now, you are free. And so you begin to trust the silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence that is pregnant with form, with beauty, with the becoming. It is in this hush, this divine pause between your breath, that the seeds you've sown in imagination begin to stretch beneath the surface. No longer anxious to dig them up and check if they've sprouted. You've learned the secret. It's not about speed, it's about surrender. The more still you become, the faster things unfold. The paradox of manifestation is this: only the one who needs nothing from the world receives everything from it, because they've already received it in their inner world. They've seen it, felt it, touched it in the sacred theater of the mind. They have assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and now they rest. This rest is not laziness. It is the holy stillness of a soul aligned with its source, a soul that no longer begs but breathes, no longer chases but chooses, no longer waits but walks in the knowing that it is already done. As Neville once said, you rise to a higher level of consciousness not by struggling to change the outer world, but by changing your inner assumptions. And so you tend to those assumptions with the tenderness of a gardener. You prune your thoughts, not in fear but in faith. Every time the old story knocks, you answer with love. You do not fight it. You thank it for showing you what no longer belongs. And then you return home to the scene within that fills you with life. You replay it not because you need to, but because it feels good. It feels natural. It feels like you. Because, dear dreamer, the most powerful manifestations do not feel like fireworks. They feel like coming home. They arrive with the soft echo of course, this is mine. Of course, this is who I am. Of course, this is the life I live. And that, of course, is the voice of God in you, quiet, unshakable, steady. That is faith, not blind but embodied. And as it is written in Hebrews 11:1, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Let those words wash over you. Substance, evidence, not hope as a distant wish, but as a living, breathing reality within you. You don't hope for something you already possess, and now you walk as one who possesses it, not in arrogance, but in reverence. You live your life as if the dream has already unfolded. You speak with the voice of the person you are becoming. You dress, breathe, and move in rhythm with that state. And something beautiful happens. life begins to mirror it back, not because you forced it, but because you finally became still enough to receive it. The stillness is the magnet. The feeling is the command. Imagination is not just vision. It is divine law in motion. It is the word made flesh. And when you imagine with feeling, when you dwell in the scene, when you taste its reality from within, you are not playing pretend. You are participating in creation. You are joining God in the act of making all things new. And in that sacred act, time bends, paths open, people appear, obstacles dissolve. But you do not celebrate the signs more than the source. You stay humble in your knowing, joyful in your becoming. And when doubt comes, and it will, you do not panic. You return to stillness, back to the inner scene that brings peace. You let it wrap around you like a warm blanket in winter. You surrender your senses and sink into the invisible. You let it become more real than the world outside. And that, my friend, is true prayer. Not pleading, but dwelling. Not asking, but accepting. You live from the end, not toward it. You stop measuring. You stop worrying. And you start living. In each breath you are reminded, this is the truth of who I am. Imagination is God. And when you imagine from the end, you are one with that creative force. You are no longer separate from the outcome. You are the outcome. You are the fulfillment in human form. And when you walk that path, gently, steadily, lovingly, the world will shift, not because you chased it, but because you finally became still enough to let it catch up to you. And as you breathe, you begin to sense that the outer world is not something separate from you, but a perfect echo of your inner convictions. What you assume with conviction, the world reflects with clarity. There is no effort here, only alignment, no grasping, only receiving. Your outer life rearranges not because you worked harder, but because you believed deeper. You allowed yourself to become one with the reality you desired, and in doing so you dissolved the barrier between desire and fulfillment. There's a divine ease in that, a rhythm that replaces striving with stillness. You move not because you're chasing, but because you're flowing. It is not a frantic race, but a quiet unfolding, like petals responding to morning light. And the more you rest in that awareness, the more you notice the subtle whispers of the divine. They arrive in unexpected ways, a chance meeting, a line in a book, a sudden clarity. But they are never random. They are responses to your inner world, to the impressions you've planted and nurtured within. This is the secret most never dare believe. The inner world is the cause. The outer is only effect. To live from imagination is to live from the source, not the shadow. And yet, even as you realize this, the mind may still resist. It asks, but how will it happen? And here you smile gently at the question, because you no longer need to know the how. You've relinquished that burden. It is not yours to carry. As it is written in Ecclesiastes 11:5, as you do not know the path of the wind, or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. You don't need to understand it. You only need to align with it, to trust the invisible hand that orchestrates all things. The same power that spins galaxies and breathes life into seeds now moves through your imagination. And when you feel the reality of your wish within, when you know it as done, then it is. You need not force it. You only need to assume it, live from it, rest in it, and allow it to unfold. This is not passive waiting, but active participation. You become a vessel for the divine, a channel through which imagination flows into form. And the world begins to feel less like something happening to you and more like something happening through you. You are no longer reacting. You are creating. Each assumption you persist in is a thread being woven into the fabric of your reality. And with every thread, the unseen becomes seen. The formless takes form. But the greatest miracle isn't what changes around you. It's what awakens within you. That still unwavering awareness that you were never lacking, never waiting, never chasing. You already are. The I am at the center of your being is not becoming, it is being. And when you imagine from that I am, you collapse the space between desire and fulfillment, because in that moment they are one. The desire was only ever a pointer to a deeper truth, that you already possess what you seek. You've only come to remember it, to awaken to it. And once you do, everything changes, not because the world shifts, but because you no longer see it the same. You no longer look for signs. You are the sign. You no longer look for evidence. You live as the evidence. That is what it means to assume the wish fulfilled. It is not hope, it is identity. It is not fantasy, it is faith. And in that faith, mountains move, doors open, time bends. But none of that matters more than the peace you now feel. A peace that doesn't depend on what happens next. A peace that flows from knowing you are already home, already whole, already one with your desire. That is the resting place of the soul, not the end of a journey, but the realization that the journey was always within. And so you breathe, you smile, you rest in the stillness that speaks louder than words. And in that stillness you are met, not by the world but by your own reflection, a reflection that says, yes, this is who I am, and from that place all things become possible. The world you see is not fixed, not final, not the ultimate truth. It is a mirror, nothing more, nothing less, a sacred echo of the imaginal acts you repeated, believed in, persisted in. And once you truly grasp this, not intellectually but viscerally, like a truth that reverberates in your chest, you stop trying to fight the mirror. You no longer reach out to rearrange the glass. You go inward and you change the face, because you now know the outer is powerless to shape the inner, but the inner holds the key to all things. This is what makes imagination not just powerful but divine. It is not a faculty of mind to be used once in a while for creativity or planning. It is the very essence of your being, the breath of God within you. To say imagination is God is not metaphor. It is not poetry. It is the most literal truth. When you imagine, you participate in creation. You tap into the infinite intelligence that designed oceans, galaxies, and atoms. That power is not distant. It is not reserved for prophets or sages. It is intimate. It is personal. It is you. And you feel this not in grand moments, but in the quiet ones. When your eyes are closed and you feel the warmth of a future event as if it's already here. When you hear words whispered in your heart that no one has said aloud, but they comfort you just the same. When you sit in stillness and allow yourself to believe, not hope, but believe that what you've asked for is already done. In those moments you're not imagining. You are communing with the divine. You are being what you already are, a creator. And yet the world will tell you to be realistic, to base your hopes on what you see. But the seen world is always old news, always a result, never the cause. The cause is within. The cause is the unseen. And Scripture echoes this again and again. As Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 4:18, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. This is the lens of the mystic. This is the way of the awakened, to walk by faith, not by sight, to move from imagination, not circumstance. Because when you know that imagination is God, you stop treating it lightly. You stop using it only when you're desperate or daydreaming. You start honoring it as your first act of creation. Before any action is taken, before a word is spoken, you imagine. And you imagine with reverence. Because now you understand what you imagine, you give life to. Your inner world is not a sandbox for fantasies. It is the womb of your future. And whatever you nurture there, whether it be fear or faith, doubt or desire, will seek expression. So guard it, feed it, water it, and most of all choose wisely what you allow to dwell within. You are not the victim of your thoughts. You are the curator, the composer, the artist. And when you take full responsibility for what you entertain in imagination, you take full responsibility for your world. You step into power without force, into change without effort. You collapse time not by chasing, but by dwelling in the end. Because the wish fulfilled is not a destination, it is a frequency. And imagination is the dial. When you tune yourself to it, when you feel it as real, you become it. And what you become, the world must reflect. It has no choice. It is law. There is no need to force, no need to manipulate the outer world. The outer world is not the point. The point is who you are being now. So be it. Be now who you desire to be, and trust fully, gently, deeply, that what you assume will harden into fact. Let that truth soften you. Let it hold you. Let it put your striving mind to rest, and let it awaken within you the quiet knowing that all things are already yours, waiting not to be earned, but assumed. When you rise tomorrow, do so not with anxiety or urgency, but with calm certainty. The kind of certainty that comes not from logic but from alignment. Because you imagined it, you became it, and now it must come. There is something sacred in the silence after assumption, that still invisible pause between imagining and receiving, where the seed rests in the soil of consciousness not yet seen, but fully alive. This is the holy space Neville often spoke of. The Sabbath of the soul, a time not of doing, but of being, a time not of proving, but of trusting. And most never linger here. They plant their desire and immediately dig it up with doubt. They look around, frantically seeking confirmation from the world, forgetting that the world does not precede the imagination, it follows it. The wise remain still, the wise enter into rest, for they know there remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God. Hebrews 4:9. And this rest is not laziness. It is spiritual confidence. It is the bold quietness of someone who knows that imagination is the first cause, and all else will bend to match it. You have felt this before, that breath of relief when you finally let go, not out of defeat, but from deep knowing. That subtle shift in energy, when you no longer ask, how will it happen, but instead whisper, it is already done. That's not delusion, that's creation. And that stillness, that surrender, is one of the most active forces in the universe. Because in that surrender, you are no longer divided. You are no longer affirming one thing in imagination and another in emotion. You are no longer sending mixed signals into the sea of consciousness. You become one, one with your desire, one with the assumption. And what is assumed, when fully embodied, emotionally inhabited, persistently felt, must be made manifest. It is law. Just as fire must burn, just as water must flow, imagination fulfilled must externalize. And yet this law works both ways. For if you assume lack, you'll experience lack. If you assume delay, you'll wait. Imagination does not discriminate. It is not moral or immoral. It is simply faithful, faithful to your dominant inner state. This is why Neville never urged you to beg God, but to be God. Because God does not beg. God declares. God imagines, and calls things that are not as though they were. Romans 4:17. And so must you. You must claim the end as yours, even when your senses scream otherwise. You must walk as though the bridge is already forming beneath your feet. And the moment you do, something in you settles. Not a passive surrender, but a quiet, unshakable knowing, like the still eye of a storm, calm even as the world whirls around it. From this place you don't need to chase. From this place you don't need to manipulate, or push or perform. You simply remain faithful, faithful to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, faithful to the inner reality you've already constructed. And day by day the world reconfigures. The people, places, and opportunities align like magnets drawn to your state of being, not because you forced it, but because you dared to imagine, dared to believe in the unseen, dared to stand firm in assumption. You'll notice small signs at first, whispers of confirmation, subtle echoes of your inner world leaking into the outer. Pay attention, give thanks, and most of all persist, because when you live from imagination, truly live from it, you're no longer reacting to life, you're originating it. You are no longer a passenger on the ship, you are the captain, the map and the wind in the sails, and with every imaginal act you are steering the course of your reality. So return to that quiet place often, that sacred temple behind closed eyes. Feel what it feels like to already be, already have, already know. For what you feel within must become what you hold without, not by might, not by struggle, but by the law of imagination. The world will not always understand this. They will tell you to hustle, to fight, to climb, but you will rest, you will imagine, and you will receive, because imagination is not a luxury, it is the engine of the universe. And when you live from it boldly, silently, faithfully, you step into your true identity, as creator, as beloved, as one with the divine. Imagination doesn't need loud proclamation. It listens in the silence, moves through the stillness, and answers not by thunder but by the whisper of conviction. To live by imagination is to walk by faith, not by sight. Not merely to believe in the unseen, but to dwell in it, to feast on its substance before the world has even set the table. When Neville said imagination is the only redemptive power in the universe, he wasn't offering philosophy, he was offering you the keys to your kingdom. For what is redemption if not the return to your true nature? And what is your true nature if not the image and likeness of God, the Creator who imagined light in the void and saw it manifest? In Genesis, the world was spoken into being, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. That wasn't just history, it was instruction. It was a blueprint. Let there be peace. Let there be abundance. Let there be healing, harmony, and joy. Let there be whatever your heart aches for in silence. Speak it in your imagination, not with fear, not with begging, but with authority. Speak it with the still certainty of someone who knows the end from the beginning, because your world will not argue. It is not here to oppose you, it is here to reflect you. As within, so without. But this is where most stumble. They try to change the mirror instead of changing the face. They fight the reflection rather than reimagining the source. You do not need to manipulate circumstances. You do not need to beg for signs. You do not need to rehearse doubt under the disguise of logic. You simply need to assume the tone of already having. Assume the inner posture of completion. Let it be done within and trust the outer to catch up. This is not effort, it is alignment. It is not strain, it is surrender to what already is in the unseen. And that unseen realm is more real than anything your senses have ever shown you. Neville taught that everything visible was once invisible. Every building, every relationship, every invention, all began as a flicker of thought, an imaginal seed. So why do we treat our imagination as fantasy, when the very fabric of the world is made from its threads? You already live by imagination. You've just been using it unconsciously. Worry is imagination. So is regret, doubt, envy, fear. They are imaginal acts clothed in emotion, rehearsed until they become familiar, and so they manifest. But what if you reversed the tide? What if you gave your imagination a nobler diet? What if you fed it joy, peace, confidence, beauty? What if you imagined not from fear of what could go wrong, but from the wonder of what is already right? This shift, this simple inner pivot, changes everything. For the world is not happening to you, it is responding to you, to your vibration, to your assumptions, to the image you hold of yourself behind closed eyes. Hold it gently, but hold it with persistence. Return to it when doubt knocks at your door. Return to it when the world forgets who you are. You remember, you are the dreamer in the dream, the one who imagines not just scenes but meanings. When you understand this, life becomes less about what's happening and more about what you're assuming. You stop asking, what do I need to do? And instead you ask, who must I be? And that question, that sacred question, is the doorway. To be is to assume is to create, and to create is to remember that you and God are one, not in theory but in function. So let yourself imagine not as a child escaping reality, but as a creator shaping it. Let yourself fall asleep not in the arms of worry, but in the feeling of fulfillment. Let your nights be rehearsals for your highest truth. Let your days be echoes of your inner certainty. And above all, let your imagination remain holy, not because it is delicate, but because it is divine. And when you begin to honor your imagination not as idle fantasy, but as sacred command, everything changes. You'll notice the world start to soften in your favor, subtle shifts, quiet confirmations, the right words spoken at the perfect time. Not because you pushed, not because you strived, but because you believe. According to your faith be it unto you. That's not just encouragement, it's law. Faith is not merely hope, it is certainty dressed in silence. It walks ahead of evidence. It sees before the eyes do. You will find that the more you rest in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the less anxious you become about how or when it arrives. The need to control fades like mist in morning sun, because you've already tasted the reality within. It's not that you deny the facts of your life, it's that you give more weight to the truth behind them. The truth that you are the operant power. The truth that your outer world cannot help but obey your inner convictions. So when lack appears, you don't panic. You don't argue with it. You smile and return gently to the scene you've created, the one where it's already yours. You walk in faith not as one pretending, but as one remembering. Remembering what? That the kingdom is within. That your imagination, when saturated with feeling, becomes the architect of faith. This is the great mystery revealed. God is not watching from the clouds. God is speaking in the still, small voice of your own imagination, creating through you as you. And yet how often we ignore that voice. We let reason shout over it. We let doubt drag us back into the shallow waters of probability. But imagination is not concerned with probability. It deals in certainty, in divine assurance. It asks only, can you believe this long enough for it to become real? That's the only test. You do not need to beg. You do not need to plead. You do not need to twist life into submission. You assume and you allow. Like a tree that stretches quietly toward the sun, you don't need to force the unfolding of your manifestation. You simply need to hold the seed of it in your heart and keep it alive with the light of your attention. Do you understand? Imagination is not an escape. It is the origin. It's the painter's hand before the brush touches canvas. It's the symphony heard in silence before a single note is played. Every result you chase began as an inner tone, a vibration, a scene held quietly in the theater of your mind. You are rehearsing your future every day, whether by default or design, whether by fear or faith. So choose the role you wish to play and embody it. Feel it real. Speak as that version of yourself. Think from it. Walk in it. Trust it. This is not about appearances. It's about identity. Because once your identity shifts, the world has no choice but to rearrange. This is what Neville meant by living from the end. It is not enough to look at your desire and long for it. You must enter it. Dwell in it. Let it surround you so fully that you forget the old self who doubted. And what happens when you do? Time bends, paths open, people show up, not by chance, but by law. For you are no longer waiting, you are receiving. And this is the most peaceful place you'll ever live. Not in some distant future where all things are perfect, but in the still moment of now, where your assumption makes it so. Even now your life is responding. It listens to the tone of your inner conversations. It bends to the images you replay before sleep. It reflects the feeling you wear like invisible clothing. So choose carefully, feel deeply, and persist lovingly. There is no one to convince, only yourself. Let your inner world be the sanctuary where the miracle already happened. Let your imagination rest not in anxiety, but in fulfillment. You already hold the brush. You already hold the script. You already hold the power. Imagination is not just part of you. Imagination is you. the eternal divine you that has never been separate from source. The world you see is not fixed. It is fluid, like the surface of a dream, responding not to what you demand but to what you accept as true, and what you accept is always shaped by what you dare to imagine. You see, imagination is not passive. It is not daydreaming. It is the womb of creation. All things that appear solid and unchangeable were once thoughts, flickering images within the mind of someone who believed just long enough to see it manifest. So ask yourself, not what you can do, but what you can imagine with conviction. The work is not in the world. The work is in consciousness. When the inner is right, the outer obeys. That is why Neville said, man moves in a world that is nothing more than his imagination pushed out. And until this truth becomes the core of your knowing, the world will appear random, unfair, indifferent. But once this truth sinks into your being, oh, how everything softens. You are no longer the victim of conditions. You are no longer trapped in circumstance. You are the artist, not the artwork, the author, not the plot, the source, not the echo. And this is where peace lives, not in control, but in conscious authorship. Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you, not outside, not above, not later. Within, in the stillness of your imagination, kingdoms rise and fall, loves are drawn in, health is restored, fortunes are built, not because you chase them, but because you assume them, gracefully, quietly, without strain. To the outer world it appears miraculous, but to you the miracle was already lived in silence, already worn, already felt, already accepted. So now when you close your eyes, do not see yourself reaching, see yourself receiving. Do not picture the gap, picture the gift. Feel it not as a wish, but as a memory, as though it happened long ago, and your heart has only now caught up to its joy. This feeling, this inner knowing, is the soil in which your future blooms. No labor required, just trust, just imagination. And when doubts arise, as they will, do not fight them. Welcome them as reminders of where you've been, not where you're going. Like shadows that flicker at the edge of a flame, they cannot survive the warmth of conviction. Return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not because it makes logical sense, but because it is your truth. Imagination will always feel truer than fact, if you let it. The facts can only echo what you believed yesterday. But imagination declares what is being made ready for tomorrow. This is the quiet revolution, not of nations or empires, but of the soul. No banner, no noise, no proof, just a deep inner click. The knowing that what you've seen in the inner world is more real than anything your senses can report. You begin to live differently. You speak from fulfillment, not desire. You give thanks before it arrives, because it has arrived in you. And as you hold that feeling, the external world quietly reshapes, one thread at a time, one reflection at a time, until you look around and realize, this is what I imagined, this is what I believed, this is what I dared to assume, and so it became flesh. This is the word made manifest. This is the mystery hidden from ages, now revealed in you. Imagination is God, not a symbol, not a metaphor, but the living presence of creation itself, flowing through your mind, your heart, your breath. So don't shrink your dreams to match your circumstances. Let your circumstances rise to meet your dreams. Don't ask if it's possible. Ask if it's imaginable. And if it is, hold it. Cherish it. Rest in it. You're not conjuring it. You're communing with it. It's already yours. You already have the brush, the canvas, the colors. You already have the authority. Now simply imagine and trust. And as you begin to trust this sacred power within you, life stops feeling like a struggle. The need to prove, to push, to chase, it dissolves. What replaces it is stillness. Not a stillness of passivity, but one of divine assurance. You're no longer trying to control the outer world, because you realize you've already shaped it inwardly. You walk through your day differently, more gently, more gracefully, not because the world has changed, but because you have changed your posture toward it. The noise outside no longer dictates the peace inside, for now you know that the only thing real is what you consent to in your imagination. Consent, Neville said, is the cause of all circumstances. You may not be aware of what you've consented to, but life is always mirroring it back to you. So what have you agreed to in secret? What emotions, what beliefs, what assumptions have taken root quietly in the soil of your consciousness? To awaken is to notice this inner agreement and rewrite it. I am is the beginning of every creation. It is the sacred name of God. It is not I will be or I want to be, but I am. I am loved. I am abundant. I am whole. Let the feeling of those truths settle into your bones. Speak them not to impress the world, but to impress your own subconscious, which moves mountains without effort once it believes. And remember, the world doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your state of being. That's why imagining the end is so powerful. Not a vague hope, but a vivid dwelling. Live in the state of already having received. Let that be your emotional address, your home. And yes, at first it might feel foreign. Your senses might argue. Your logic might protest. But the deeper you rest in it, the more familiar it becomes. Eventually it becomes so natural that to imagine anything else would feel false. That is the turning point. When your inner conviction outshines the outer facts, as it is written in Hebrews 11:1, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is not wishful thinking. It is spiritual sight. It is seeing the invisible and feeling it as real. It is placing your full weight on the unseen and finding, to your wonder, that it holds you. This is what it means to walk by faith and not by sight, to dwell in the finished picture, to assume the wish fulfilled, to let the vision be more vivid than the void, because the void will tempt you. It will whisper, look around, nothing's changed, and if you listen you'll be drawn back into the old state, the state of longing, of waiting, of lack. But when you remember, when you feel the truth again, you rise, not with force but with grace, because your imagination doesn't ask for struggle, it only asks for belief. And once belief is full, once it overflows, it hardens into fact, effortlessly. A phone call comes, a door opens, a new idea arrives. It's not magic, it's alignment. The outer world simply yields to the inner command. So tonight as you lie in bed, don't just drift into sleep, drift into fulfillment. Let your last thoughts be of your wish already lived, already loved, already known. Feel the smile of it, the safety of it, the joy of it. Wrap yourself in it as if it were a blanket woven from eternity itself. This is your gift. This is your inheritance. For imagination is not just your tool. It is your creator, your comforter, your guide, and it lives within you, always has. And as you lay in that stillness, something subtle begins to happen. Not in the world outside, but within you. A shifting, a quiet reorientation of your entire being. The mind slows. The breath deepens. The chatter recedes. And suddenly, the silence speaks, not with words but with a knowing, a felt awareness that whispers without sound. It is done. This is the sacred moment Neville often pointed to, that in-between place, not quite asleep, not quite awake, the threshold of creation. Here the doors of imagination are wide open, and whatever image you welcome in, whatever feeling you invite to rest in your heart, becomes the seed of tomorrow's reality. You don't need to push, you don't need to beg. You simply need to feel that it is already yours. Like a mother who feels the baby move before the world sees a bump, you feel your manifestation before the world sees results. And this is why imagination is divine, because it allows you to bypass time. Neville called it thinking from the end instead of thinking of the end, a subtle but powerful shift. Most people imagine as spectators. They see their desires from a distance as if behind glass. But when you think from the end, you dissolve the distance. You don't see the blessing. You become the one who already has it. You don't ask for love, you are love. You don't reach for abundance, you are abundant. You don't chase healing, you are whole. From this state the world has no choice but to respond. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. You are not forcing things to happen, you are remembering they already have. For God calls those things which be not as though they were. Romans 4:17. And if God dwells in you as imagination, then you hold that same creative authority. You speak inwardly, and the world listens. You move internally, and the pieces rearrange, not always instantly, not always visibly, but always faithfully. The outer world is not the cause, it is the echo. The cause is the inner word, the assumption clothed in feeling. So what are you assuming tonight? What quiet agreement are you making with life? Are you aligning with limitation or with liberation? Even when nothing outside seems to support it, the one who lives in the end will see mountains move, doors open, timelines collapsed, because they are not hoping for the future. They are dwelling in it. And what you dwell in expands. Like a fragrance that fills the room, your state of being radiates into everything you touch. Every conversation, every action, every moment becomes charged with the essence of your assumption. So carry yourself differently, not as someone waiting, but as someone remembering. You've seen it in your mind's eye. You've felt it in the sanctuary of your soul. And that is enough. You don't need applause. You don't need proof. You only need to persist in the assumption. And persistence isn't strain. It's devotion. It's returning to the vision every time the senses pull you away. It's choosing again, and again, and again. Not with effort, but with reverence. Because this isn't just manifestation. This is communion. This is prayer without words. This is faith made flesh. When your inner world becomes more real to you than the outer one, you will have touched the heart of true creation. you will have become what you truly are, imagination, not as fantasy, but as God in motion, and through you the Word becomes flesh. Let that be your rest tonight, not in wishful thinking, but in holy certainty. And yet, even after all this, the mind may still whisper, but how do I know it's working? Ah, that question. The gentle ache of the doubting heart. The same question countless souls have carried through centuries of seeking, kneeling, and hoping. But the answer does not come through signs. It comes through stillness. It comes when you stop needing the outer world to validate what the inner world has already declared. Neville often reminded us, you are the operant power, not the observer, not the waiter, not the beggar, but the operant, the one who acts within. And what is your action? To feel the truth of the thing you desire so deeply, so lovingly, that it lives in you before it lives in form. Because imagination is not passive, it is the womb of creation. And if imagination is God, as Neville boldly proclaimed, then your inner activity is divine, sacred, causal. When you imagine a scene that implies your wish is already fulfilled, when you feel it as if it were unfolding right now, you are not playing pretend, you are planting truth, and truth does not beg for approval, it simply is. When God said, "Let there be light," he didn't wait to see if the sky would agree. He spoke and the light appeared. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth, says Isaiah 55:11. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. Your imagination, your assumption, your inner word, it does not return void, unless you snatch it back with doubt, unless you uproot it with fear. You do not need to check the soil every day to see if the seed is growing. You water it with faith, you nurture it with silence, you protect it with rest. And rest, beloved, is not laziness, it is the highest proof of faith. Rest says, I know it is done. Rest says, I don't need to fight for what is already mine. Rest says, I trust the law, because imagination follows law, and the law is what you assume to be true persists until it is made manifest. This is why you must guard your inner speech. Watch the conversations you entertain in the sanctuary of your mind. If they contradict your desire, release them gently. Don't fight them, replace them. Like turning the dial on a radio. Shift your station. Tune into the version of you who already has the thing. Speak from that place. Feel from that place. Live there. And if ever you forget, return. Again and again return. Let it become your dwelling place. Not a vacation spot you visit in meditation, but your address, your home, your identity. This is not delusion. It is discipline. It is seeing with the eyes of spirit rather than the eyes of flesh. Because what the world calls real is only the echo. But imagination, it is the word. And in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, speak the word again, not out loud, not with lips, but with the deeper language of feeling. See the scene, feel the tone, smell the air of that fulfilled desire, hear the applause of your answered prayer. Let your senses bow to your imagination, because that is the sacred reversal, where the unseen becomes more trustworthy than the seen, where what is felt becomes more powerful than what is proven. And that, my friend, is the secret. You were never meant to chase the outer world. You were meant to command it, through the quiet majesty of your inner eye. So now sleep in your wish fulfilled, not with effort, not with strain, but with reverence. And so, as you begin to rest in that sacred inner sanctuary, the place where you already are what you once sought, something subtle shifts, not in the world, but in you. And this shift is everything. You stop asking, when will it come? And start knowing, it already is. This quiet confidence, this inner resolve, is not loud. It does not shout for attention or prove its point. It simply breathes. It's the knowing that no matter what the world seems to say, it's only a delay, never a denial. Because the world is but a mirror, and mirrors are always late. They reflect what you were, not what you are becoming. If you want the image to change, you do not reach into the mirror and rearrange it. You change, you shift the posture of your heart. You soften your doubt into belief. You lean into the feeling that what you imagined has already unfolded. And now you are simply catching up to your own creation. Neville called this living in the end. It is the art of being so saturated in the emotional reality of your fulfilled desire, that your outer world must bow to it, must bend to it, must remake itself to reflect what you've already claimed within. Not someday, not after effort, but now. For now is the only time God moves. And who is God? Your own wonderful imagination. The spark that breathed you into being does not live outside you. It beats within you. The moment you stop searching for God in cathedrals and sky, and start recognizing that whisper in your chest, that divine I am, you begin to awaken. You realize the journey was never out there. It was inward, always inward. You may remember a verse, Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Not go out and hustle, not cry and beg, not search and strive. Be still. Stillness is the gateway to power, to clarity, to union. Imagination reveals its truest nature, not as fantasy, but as the blueprint of all things seen. And in this stillness you'll discover that your assumption of being, your inner state, becomes your world. It has no choice, because the law was set before time, as within so without. As you imagine, so shall it be. You are not waiting for the miracle, you are wearing it, clothing yourself in the invisible fabric of fulfilled dreams, until they take form and walk beside you. And when doubt creeps in, as it sometimes will, you don't fight it, you return. Return to the end, return to the state, return to that quiet golden knowing where the thing is done, the prayer is answered, and your heart is at peace. This is not delusion, it is divine alignment. Delusion is trying to change the mirror, while refusing to change the face. But alignment, that's when your inner vision and outer life become one. That's when your world softens into harmony. Your days feel lighter. People respond differently. Opportunities open with grace, not because the world changed first, but because you did. And when you dwell here long enough, in this inner temple of imagination, something even more profound happens. You stop needing the thing, because the feeling is enough. You have touched the essence of fulfillment, and in that touch your heart is satisfied. The paradox, of course, is that when you need nothing, all things come, because you are no longer trying to force reality to deliver joy. You have become joy itself, and the world, being ever faithful, must reflect it. So tonight, as your eyelids grow heavy, and the mind begins to loosen its grip, let yourself descend into that sacred state once more. Imagine, not to get, but to be, to dwell, to melt into the version of yourself who already walks in the answered prayer. Feel the subtle shift. Let it take root in your breath, in your body, in your being, and from that place, soft, serene, and sure, let the world unfold. And as you settle deeper into the quiet of your own being, something ancient awakens, not through words but through presence. There is no striving here, no performance, just awareness, a soft witnessing of what is and what has always been. This is not the work of imagination alone. This is union. Union with the very essence that spoke the world into existence, not with sound but with vision. Let there be light, and there was light. That wasn't a command, it was a recognition, a statement of being so profound, so saturated in certainty, that the universe bent around it. And that same power now stirs within you, not as a theory, but as a memory. You've known it all along, haven't you? Even as a child, when you played pretend, not to escape the world, but to shape it. Back then you didn't need to be told imagination was real. You lived in it. You became what you saw in your mind. You were the astronaut, the queen, the explorer, the magician. No one had to convince you, because the child knows what adults forget, that imagination isn't fiction, it's foundation, it's the invisible soil from which all visible life sprouts. And when Jesus said, "Unless you become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven," he wasn't speaking in riddles. He was pointing us back, not to ignorance, but to purity, to the unfiltered, untainted belief that what you see in your heart is more real than what you see with your eyes. You don't need eyes to see when your inner sight is clear. You don't need proof when your feeling is pure. You only need to return to that state where assumption and reality are one, where imagining isn't a game, it's a gesture of divine authority, the authority you forgot you had. But now, slowly it returns, not in a flood of effort, but in a gentle remembering, a remembering that you are not separate from creation, you are creation itself, unfolding. And every time you dwell in the state of your wish fulfilled, every time you feel the relief of already being, already having, already knowing, you dissolve the illusion of time, you collapse the waiting, you dissolve the gap, because time is only needed when you don't yet believe. But when belief is complete, time becomes irrelevant. The end rushes in to meet you, because you've become one with it. This is not magic in the fantasy sense. It is magic in the truest sense, the sacred sense, the sense that aligns with divine law. Imagination is the first cause, and all else is its echo. You do not have to force life to deliver what belongs to you. You have only to wear it inwardly faithfully, like a cloak, like a crown, like skin. And when the outer world begins to reflect what you assumed in the silence of your soul, you will not be surprised. You will nod, quietly, softly, lovingly, because you knew, and more than knowing, you felt. You walked with it before the world could see it, and that is the mark of a master, not one who manipulates matter, but one who masters mind. And mind, when saturated with feeling, is the womb of reality. So sleep, dear soul, not as one who hopes for something better, but as one who has become the better. Rest as the healed, as the wealthy, as the loved, as the whole, and let your imagination carry you not into fantasy, but into truth, the most radical truth you've ever heard, that you are God imagining, and you always have been. There is a sweetness in surrender, not the kind that weakens you, but the kind that melts resistance. And the moment you stop resisting, the moment you stop trying to make things happen, you feel it, the current beneath the surface, already carrying you home. You no longer chase outcomes because you've already arrived in feeling. And that arrival, that subtle inner landing, is where reality begins its shift. Most people will tell you, you have to do more, try harder, push longer. But that is the wisdom of the outer man, born of effort, fear, and striving. Neville taught us another way. He whispered of an inner realm where the law is not force but faith, not tension but trust. Be still and know that I am God, still, not panicked, not grasping for results, but resting in the deep, still waters of knowing, knowing that what you have accepted within will unfold without, as surely as morning follows night. What happens when a seed is planted? Do you stand over it, screaming at the soil to grow? No, you bury it in darkness, walk away and trust, and your imagination is no different. It is the sacred soil of the unseen, and your assumptions, gently planted, are the seeds of your world. Doubt is like digging them up. Fear is like trampling them underfoot. But stillness is sunlight. The stillness of one who knows, who rests, who accepts the unseen as more real than the seen. And here's the secret most never grasped. Imagination, when believed, becomes sensation. It feels like something, not far off, not someday, but now. Close your eyes, not to escape the world, but to re-enter it with new authority. Can you feel it? The embrace of the beloved, the warmth of the sunlit home, the thrill of achievement, not as fantasy, but as reality felt. That is the great work, not to get, but to become. And the more fully you inhabit the state, the less you need the world to prove it to you, because the outer world always catches up. It cannot resist the pull of a soul who has remembered who they are. And who are you? You are imagination, wrapped in flesh, spirit dreaming itself into form. This isn't poetry alone, it is power, and the more you honor it, the more the world bows in response. Don't wait to see it, feel it first. Don't wait for permission, assume it now. Don't ask how, rest in the knowing that it is done. And this knowing, this silent certainty, is the key that unlocks all doors. Not because you demand it, but because you assume. You stepped into the end, and the path unfolded. No longer the beggar at the gate, but the master of the house. And from that place, that quiet inner throne, you speak only what you wish to see, and the word does not return void. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please. It is written, and your word, your assumption, is the living echo of divine speech. Speak softly, speak boldly, but above all, speak inwardly. And then, let go of time, let go of how, let go of proof. You don't need the seed to sprout instantly to trust the harvest. Just feel the warmth of the end, and carry it like a hidden flame in your chest. This is the practice, the mystery, the miracle. Imagination is not an escape, it is the return to your true nature, to your forgotten power, to the God within. The world around you is not final, it is flexible, like clay, and the hands that shape it are invisible. Not your fingers, but your focus. Not your strength, but your stillness. You don't need to rearrange the external, you need only rearrange your assumptions. And yet, we forget. We forget that the screen of life is always one scene behind the projector. What we see now is yesterday's imagination, an echo of former beliefs, crystallized into form. So why fight the echo? Why argue with the mirror? You don't fix your reflection by polishing the glass. You fix it by changing your expression. The wise look not at what is, but what feels true within, despite appearances. Neville would say, dare to assume, because assumption is creation. And assumption, when held in feeling, becomes fate. But not the fate handed to you by circumstances. The fate you author in silence. And that silence, it is not empty. It is the holy of holies. In the stillness of night, long before morning comes, there you sit, eyes closed, yet more awake than ever. You don't need loud affirmations or dramatic rituals. Just a subtle shift, a gentle pivot within. It begins with a whisper. This is who I am now. Not a desperate plea, not a someday hope, but a quiet recognition. You walk not to the future, but from it. You no longer chase change, you embody it. Because you understand now, the unseen is the seed, and your felt state is the soil. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith then is not belief in the unknown. It is the evidence of what the world can't yet prove, but you already know. And how do you know? Because you felt it. The moment it's real within, the world is already bending, already shifting, already moving, like the quiet hum of morning before the sunrise. You may not see it yet, but you feel its warmth. Imagination is not childish, it is the womb of the world. And when you give yourself fully to its embrace, when you surrender to the scene, when you lose yourself in the wish fulfilled, you've done all that needs to be done. From that moment, you no longer act to get, you act because you already have. This is why manifestation becomes natural, not forced, not frantic, not performed. You do not need to wrestle blessings from life, you only need to wake up to the ones already alive within you. It is not arrogance to walk in your fulfilled desire, it is obedience to your divine nature. For the Father and the imagination are one, and he who has seen imagination has seen the face of God. So walk slowly now, let your breath soften, let your muscles ease, feel yourself float gently into the end. What does your life look like from that end? Not as fantasy, but as memory. What do you remember from the future? This is not madness, it is mastery. To think from your wish, not of it. To see the world not as it is, but as it reflects your new state of being. You sit in the same chair, drink from the same cup, but the world has changed, because you have changed. And that change within, that unseen shift, is more powerful than armies, more enduring than stone, because it was birthed not from effort, but from truth, not from struggle, but surrender. And from this place, this gentle resting place, all things are added unto you, according to your faith, be it unto you, the faith to feel now, to live from the end, to know it is already so, not because the world says yes, but because you did. There's a quiet moment, when you stop trying to prove anything, when you stop waiting for permission to believe, and instead, you simply decide. A still, sacred choice, I am already who I wish to be. And though the world may not yet echo it, you no longer need its reflection to feel your truth, because you've moved from the outer court into the temple within. This is the essence of imagination. It is not idle daydreaming. It is creation in motion, subtle, unseen, yet as real as breath. It is your brushstroke on the canvas of life, and it is not done with strain but with surrender. You don't need to force images in your mind. You allow them to bloom, like petals unfolding at dawn, gently, softly, inevitably. Sit in the stillness now, and imagine as if it were already true. Don't beg, don't plead, assume the tone, the air, the rhythm of your fulfilled self. Breathe as they would breathe, smile with their ease, rest in their peace, and from this fertile silence creation takes root. Remember, let the weak say I am strong, not tomorrow, not when it's visible, but now, in the face of contradiction. This is not denial of fact, it is the embrace of truth, and truth, divine truth, is not based on appearances. It is based on knowing. You were not sent here to fix broken pieces. You came to awaken, to remember your power, to speak life where there was none. Imagination is not secondary, it is primary, it is the cause, not the echo. You do not look around to define what is possible. You look within, because within you is the law and the prophet. Within you is the kingdom and its keys. Within you is the face of God. When you imagine, you are not escaping reality. You are stepping behind the curtain, into the workshop of God Himself. And this workshop, it is not bound by clocks or calendars. It is not impressed by effort or exhaustion. It responds to feeling, to conviction, to the quiet certainty that says, it is done. So stop asking when, stop needing signs. You are not a beggar. You are the beloved. You were never meant to chase miracles. You were meant to be one. And when you sit with yourself in imagination, fully clothed in the end result, you are not just visualizing, you are communing. You are resting in the arms of the Most High, not above you, not beyond you, but as you. The world may still appear the same for a time, but like the unseen tide beneath the ocean, your inner world has shifted, and the shore will change. You'll see people respond differently. Opportunities you never imagined will unfold, not by chance, but by law. Because imagination does not ask if you're worthy. It only asks, can you feel it as real? That feeling is the bridge. And every time you return to it, gently, consistently, you reinforce it. You water the seed, until one day the external matches the internal. And people call it luck. But you'll know better. You'll know that you touched the hem of the garment, and believe. You'll know that heaven is not a distant realm, but a state of mind. and you'll know that the power you once sought in others was always whispering in the silence of your soul. So then, what happens when you no longer seek but become? When the questions quiet down and the answers begin to rise from the stillness within. This is where the sacred dance of assumption begins. Not in a loud display, not in the frantic chase to manifest, but in the soft knowing that what is unseen is more real than anything your eyes could touch. For we walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. Not by the sight of the senses, but by the inner eye of imagination. And this inner eye, it sees clearly even in the dark. It recognizes the signal in the silence. It finds form in formlessness. You don't need evidence to believe. You don't need proof to feel. You need only the willingness to dwell in the end. Not visit it, not glance at it, but live there, sleep there, breathe there. For every moment you do, you are impressing the subconscious, the womb of creation, with the seed of your assumption. And that seed, when nurtured with persistence and faith, will bloom in ways the logical mind could never predict. Imagination, then, is not passive. It is the cause behind every effect. The world may say, be realistic, but God in you whispers, be faithful. Faithful to the vision, faithful to the unseen, faithful to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And that feeling, it is your true north. It is not excitement nor desperation. It is not fireworks or frenzy. It is quiet, like the hush before dawn, like the stillness that comes after you've stopped striving. It is contentment, a sacred sigh that says, yes, this is mine. And from that sigh, from that peaceful inner nod, the world must rearrange itself, not by force, but by law. For the world is yourself pushed out, and so when you change within, the mirror must shift. If you carry the feeling of love, the world reflects love. If you carry abundance, you meet prosperity in unexpected places. If you carry peace, even chaos becomes calm in your presence. Not because the outer changed first, but because you did. This is not fantasy. This is the design. God did not place you here to struggle through shadows. He placed himself within you as imagination and gave you the power to shape the world from within. The question is not, will it happen? The question is, can you feel it as already done? Because when you do, the doors open. Not always how you expected, but always in perfect time. And if doubt creeps in, as it often does, you return again, not with guilt, but with grace. You don't wrestle doubt, you soothe it. You say, peace, be still, just as he did to the storm. And just like the waves, your mind settles, your heart reopens, and your vision clears once more. This is the work, this is the walk, not in striving, but in surrender. Surrendering not to defeat, but to truth. The truth that God is not outside of you, not a distant deity watching from the clouds, but the breath in your chest, the still voice in your silence, and the image you hold behind closed eyes. Imagination is God, and when you honor it, you honor him. So close your eyes, not to escape, but to awaken, to remember, to become. And so you rest, not because you've given up, but because you've given in to the eternal truth that all things are already yours. You don't force the flower to bloom. You don't shout at the seed in the soil. You simply know what you planted and wait in the faith that it will rise. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Galatians 6:7. And your imagination, that holy place where you first saw the dream take shape, is the soil. It is always responding, always unfolding, not on your timetable but in divine order. So you trust the unseen currents. You stop checking the weather of the world and start tuning in to the climate of your soul. Are you warm with expectancy or cold with doubt? Are you flooded with gratitude or parched from fear? Because your outer life is just a reflection of your inner forecast, and you are the weather maker. Your imagination is the sun, casting light on whatever you choose to see. It does not argue. It does not reason. It obeys the images you impress upon it. So impress carefully, not in panic, but in peace. You do not beg the mirror to change. You simply smile differently, and it responds. Likewise, the world cannot resist your inner shift. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are placing the key in the door and turning it. The door may not swing open instantly, but something clicks inside. And once it does, you never go back. You begin to walk differently, not because you're pretending, but because you're remembering. The wish fulfilled is not something to achieve. It is something to awaken. Like Lazarus in the tomb, your dormant dreams are not dead. They're only asleep, waiting for your voice to call them forth. Lazarus, come forth. John 11:43. Speak that way to your desires. Speak life. Speak as one who knows, not as one hoping, but as one having. And if the world says, where is it? You say nothing. You rest in the knowing that it's done. You don't need to convince others. You only need to convince the one within. Because once that self is persuaded, the outer world becomes a loyal echo. This is why Neville said that imagination creates reality. Not imagination plus effort. Not imagination plus willpower. But imagination plus belief. So soften your grip. Ease your shoulders. Close your eyes not to escape, but to return home. Back to the garden. Back to the center. Back to the space where all things are possible. The world may call it foolish, but you've seen too much to agree. You've felt the shift that happens when you dwell in the end long enough for it to feel familiar. That familiarity is the bridge. That calm conviction is the call. And when the call goes out, life must answer. You don't chase the promise. You live as if it's already yours. And in time the promise chases you. So don't ask if you're worthy. Don't measure by past mistakes. The only question is, can you feel it now? If the answer is yes, you've done enough. You've gone far enough. The seed is sown. The rest is surrender. You don't need to force what already belongs to you. The moment you imagine it, truly feel it, you've planted the incorruptible seed. And seeds know what to do. They do not strive. They do not stress. They rest, rooted in faith beneath the soil of the seen world. So must you. Let your imaginal act sink in. Let it rest in the silence. It is in that sacred quiet where the real work happens in the dark, where roots dig deep and life rearranges itself to serve the vision within. For the kingdom of God is as if a man should cast seed into the ground, and should sleep and rise night and day. And the seed should spring and grow up, he knoweth not how. Mark 4:26-27. You are not here to know how, you are here to know. To know with such clarity that the world itself softens before your eyes. To walk through your days not in search of proof but in the knowing that you are the proof. The change happens when you stop asking if it's possible and begin asking, how would I feel if it were done? Sit with that feeling. Breathe it in. Taste the texture of fulfillment. Let it melt into your chest, down your arms into your fingertips. And you'll notice something. The outside world begins to echo that vibration, subtly at first, then boldly. A friend calls with unexpected news. An email arrives. A stranger says exactly what you needed to hear. But none of that surprises you, because it was already true within you. Your world is not reacting to what you say. It's responding to who you are, to what you know to be true in your imagination. And when you assume the wish fulfilled, not once, not occasionally, but as a dwelling place, you collapse time. You dissolve the illusion of distance between you and what you seek, because there is no future in the language of God. There is only I am, not I will be, not I hope to become, but I am. And when you say it with conviction, the heavens align. Let others wait, let others doubt. You no longer live in the question, you live in the answer. You don't knock, you walk in. You don't rehearse, you remember. And this remembering becomes your atmosphere. Your aura shifts. You carry something invisible but undeniable. People feel it. Opportunities feel it. Even obstacles part for it. Because nothing resists a soul in harmony with its own vision. This is what it means to be in the world but not of it. You move through time, but time no longer controls you. You carry the end inside the beginning. You carry the harvest in the seed. So tonight, as you lie in bed, don't replay the day. Don't rehearse the worries. Instead, return. Return to the scene that sets your soul on fire. See it again. Feel it again. Be there again. And let the feeling wrap around you like warm linen. Let it rock you into sleep. Because in sleep the conscious mind softens, and the subconscious receives the image as law. And when that image becomes your inner law, life must obey. What you embody, you attract. What you dwell in, you express. What you assume, you become. So dwell wisely, not with effort, but with ease. Because when you finally accept that imagination is God, you stop begging, you stop waiting, you begin, and all of heaven moves with you. The moment you live from the end, not think of it, not wish for it, but live from it, you enter a sacred alignment that transcends logic. In that space, the laws of men dissolve, time bends, conditions rearrange, and the ordinary becomes supernatural. But it asks for one thing in return: your willingness to let go of the senses as your master. The five senses will whisper doubt. They'll point to the absence. They'll say, look, nothing has changed. But you must be still. And remember, you walk by faith, not by sight. And faith, true faith, is not passive. It is a spiritual stance, an inner knowing, a claiming, before the world sees, before the mind agrees. For we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. 2 Corinthians 4:18. You are not meant to be ruled by shadows. You are the light behind them. Imagination is not fantasy. It is the blueprint of reality. And when you imagine with conviction, when you feel the reality of your wish fulfilled, you animate that blueprint with divine breath. It begins to take on form, quietly at first beneath the surface. But in time it will rise into your world, not as a miracle, but as a natural outcome of who you are. You see, the outer world is not the creator, it is the echo. And when you try to fix the echo, you chase illusions. But when you shift the voice that sings, the echo must follow. That voice is your imagination. The inner world leads, the outer world obeys. So don't fight the reflection. Change the face looking into the mirror. You are not small, you are not separate. You are the dreamer and the dream. You are the author of your experience. And every scene you rehearse inwardly, every detail you lovingly inhabit, is a prayer more powerful than words. You don't have to beg, you only have to believe, not with clenched fists, but with open hands, not with frantic urgency, but with quiet assurance. Let your inner world become your home. Let it be so vivid that you return to it again and again, not out of need, but out of joy, not to get, but to remember. And this remembrance becomes your anchor when the storm comes, because it will. There will be moments when doubt knocks loudly, when fear pretends to be logic, when time stretches and silence feels cruel. But these are the final tests, the cracking of the shell before the sprout emerges. Hold your vision then, wrap it in tenderness, cradle it like a child, and speak to it softly. It is done. I have it now. It is mine, and it will be, because it always was. You're not waiting on the world is waiting on you to align. So tonight, as your head meets the pillow, don't fall asleep with the weight of the day. Fall asleep with the memory of the fulfilled dream. Let that be the last thing you touch in your mind, the last feeling you carry into the stillness. Let that be the atmosphere of your rest, because in that sleep you give it life, and in your waking you walk in its footsteps. And now we arrive at the stillness. Not the end, but the beginning hidden within it. You walk with me through valleys of thought, through mountains of belief, and now we rest in the garden of remembrance. For this is not new. This truth, this radiant knowing, it was always yours. Before the world formed its laws, before time carved its sequence, you were the one imagining it all into being. From the first flicker of longing, from the first whisper of desire, you were never apart from the thing you sought. You were the seed and the bloom, the question and the answer, the hunger and the feast. When you imagined with love, not grasping or striving but dwelling, you were speaking the language of God, and not a distant God in the sky, but the one within you, clothed in your form, breathing through your lungs, dreaming through your soul. I am the Lord, and there is none else, there is no God beside me. Isaiah 45:5. So when you say I am, you speak the holy name, and whatever follows becomes your creation. I am free, I am whole, I am already what I seek. The world will echo it back, in ways both small and grand, not because it pities you, but because it mirrors you. The moment you stop pleading with life, and begin assuming your role as its author, life bows to your script. Every delay was a lesson. Every silence was a call to go deeper. Every detour was a redirection to your true self. You didn't fail. You wandered, so you could remember the way. And now you do. Now you know. You've seen the hidden thread. You've felt the shift within. And though the world may appear unchanged, you are not the same. You carry a light behind your eyes, a quiet fire, a royal memory. So take this knowing into your days. Walk gently, but walk tall. Not with pride, but with certainty. When fear arises, bless it. When doubt knocks, smile. For you know they are shadows that dissolve in the face of your inner sun. And when others ask, how did it happen for you? You'll simply say, I imagined it. I lived it. I became it. No need for explanation. Your presence will speak louder than words, because you are not here to convince. You are here to embody, to live as proof that imagination is God, and God is within. Not someday, not if you're good enough. Now right here, in this breath. So close your eyes tonight, not with hope, but with gratitude. Not asking, but thanking. Thanking the unseen for already being. Thanking your soul for remembering. Thanking your imagination for revealing itself as the divine. Rest now. You are held. You are safe. You are whole. And most of all, you already are what you once dreamed. Let your heart be still. Let your mind fall gently, and let sleep carry you into the fulfilled vision you now call home.